This is part 2 of chapter 6 of Internet Marketing. To continue with marketing research on the online, let's take a look at some advantages and disadvantages. This chart shows some of the great things that we can do with Internet research and some of the things that are a bit of a challenge. The first thing is it's inexpensive and it's easy. I mentioned SurveyMonkey earlier. If you go to surveymonkey.com, you can for free create a survey and send it to a small group of people. At some point you have to turn on the professional version and pay for that, but for quite a few people, just having the free version of SurveyMonkey takes care of all of their needs. The other thing is you have a huge group of people in order to send your survey to, right? You can pick a specialized niche or you can send it to millions of people. It's less likely that you're going to come up with data entry because the respondents do the data entry itself. So you don't have a raft of 20 or 30 or 40 people trying to enter data from paper surveys. So here's both an advantage and a disadvantage, right? When it comes to responses, you can assume that you're getting an honest response to some sensitive questions, but you also might be getting some frivolous or dishonest responses. Now, this can happen certainly with offline survey research as well. You need to be careful with who answers the question. Even though the invitation to a survey may come to one person in the household, somebody else may actually fill it out. And of course, because it's all computerized, it's very easy for the data to be tabulated. At the very bottom, and you can probably barely see this, it says there's less interviewer bias. Well, that's true because you're not talking to a human most of the time. On the disadvantages side, though, there are probably the biggest problem is a declining response rate. There are so many surveys being put into the marketplace that people are tired of filling out forms. I'm sure you've all been on a website when you first get there and there's a pop-up that says, will you give us feedback about this site? And maybe the first or second time you did it, and then by the fifth or sixth time, you're just tired of doing somebody else's job for them. So that's certainly a disadvantage. And then we can't really authenticate who's responding to this survey. That's always a problem. So I have a project for you that I would like you to take a look at. I was originally planning for this to be an in-class group project, but since we don't have class, I'm going to ask you to do this individually. So in the top right hand corner of that slide, you can see I've created groups. These are the groups that you're going to be working in for the rest of the semester on all kinds of things, both in class and outside of class. So here's the situation. Our company, I'm the CEO of the company and you're the Internet Marketing Department, each and every one of you. We are Oceanside Organic Chocolate Company. And as the CEO, I have some challenges for you. Number one is our shopping cart abandon rate is 15% above the industry norm of 68%. 68%. I want to know why our abandon rate is so high and what we can do about it. Also, my new product development team has created an incredible new chocolate coffee truffle using coffee that's only found on the eastern side of the Himalayan mountains. I want this thing launched by Mother's Day. How should it be positioned in the market? And then third, the VP of Marketing wants an analysis of the chocolate purchase habits of millennials who are age 25 to 35. So each of you pick one question to answer, not all three of them, but just pick one. And the question is, how are you going to research getting that answer? So what are the 2 or 3 ways you're going to use to create an online survey to answer those questions? So I want you to be prepared to discuss that first thing on Thursday. It shouldn't take you more than, I don't know, 15 minutes to come up with the answers based on what we've already talked about in this chapter and what you've already read about. Online panels are increasingly being used to combat sampling and resource problems of online surveys. Although some of these panels are small, others contain millions of participants. Some ethical concerns of online research include unsolicited email, harvesting email addresses from news groups, and selling under the guise of research, and the lack of privacy for user data. So one thing that you might think about with your little research project is to think about creating an online panel. An online panel would be a group of people that maybe have agreed to answer questions from our Oceanside Chocolate Company. The other thing that we should talk about is we should talk about the ethics of online research. Oftentimes, companies that conduct research on the web and research face-to-face for that matter, give respondents a free gift or even cash for participating. Many times, if you are in a focus group, it's a very small group of people who've been paid anywhere from $10 to $200 to give their opinions. Also, we need to be careful with the ethical concerns to ensure that we're not in violation of the CAN-SPAM laws. That is, we can't just go out and send unsolicited email to people who we think might answer our research questions. Also, I want to talk a little bit about some technology information that we might be able to use to collect data. One is, of course, cookies. By dropping a cookie on somebody's computer, as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, we can get a lot of user information, actually, everything from demographic information to site search information. And then the other thing that we get from the server-side data collection is how many people, now this is not specifically to an individual, but how many people visit a particular page, see a particular photograph, and how do we profile people through the website. So this is probably this is a good example of all of the things coming together at once to show us where we can get all kinds of information. Our customer, either online or offline, purchases something that goes into a product database, and then it might also go into a transaction database as well as a customer database, and all of that is put together in one giant data warehouse. We could add to this, we could also add to our customer database social media interactions across multiple different social media platforms. We could add clickstream information so that we're really building an entire profile of individuals, as you will see when you take a look at the video from 60 Minutes. I want to wrap up this chapter just with a quick acknowledgement of the kinds of metrics that are being used for online research. One is what's the total cost, what's the return on investment that we're getting for the installation of our data storage. And the other is the total cost of ownership. You know, there are many ways that we're collecting data, and even though it's a lot less expensive to do so using online methodologies, there's still costs involved. There's the cost of a human designing getting the information, collecting the information itself, and so it's not just the storage cost of the hardware storage, it's all of the human interaction that goes on in addition to that. So when we think about the marketing information system, we don't think of it as something that's free and data that's being just collected without any cost. So we need to always be cognizant of the fact that we should be able to look at a return on investment for all of the information that we come up against. This concludes the second part of Chapter 6 and the end of Chapter 6.